Hello there, very good evening and welcome to the News at 6, where we get you the day's top developing stories. Here are the headlines of this hour. Supreme Court criminalizes sexual intercourse with a minor wife aged between 15 to 18, strikes down exception 2 to section 375 of the Indian Penal Code, calls exception arbitrary and violative of the Constitution. World Bank and the IMF attribute India's slowdown to demonetization and GST rollout, scale down growth projections for India. Actor Anupam Kher is appointed as chairman of the Film and Television Institute of India, replaces Gajendra Chauhan, whose tenure as head of the Pune-based institute ended in March. Spanish Prime Minister moves towards suspending Catalonia's political autonomy and takeover of the region. Move comes in response to Catalan President Carles Puigdemont's speech, making a symbolic declaration of independence. Top story today. In a landmark judgment, the Supreme Court has criminalized sexual intercourse with a minor wife aged between 15 to 18 years. Under the Indian Penal Code, or IPC, a man having sex with a girl below 18 with or without her consent is defined as a crime. However, an exception is made if the girl is his wife and not below 15. The Supreme Court struck down that exception, exception 2 to section 375 of the Indian Penal Code, saying that this exception was arbitrary and violative of the Constitution. The Supreme Court bench, comprising Justice Madan B. Lokar and Deepak Gupta, said that the husband is liable to be prosecuted if the woman files a complaint within a year of the sexual act. Pronouncing the judgment, the court also asked the centre and states to take proactive steps to prohibit child marriage across the country. However, the judges made it clear that they were not getting into the subject of marital rape.
This was the part of our petition where we seek court's intervention, that it's very discriminatory to kind of differentiate between girls and unmarried, because your provision of Child Marriage Act does not allow marriages to happen. A girl below the age of 18 years does not have the capacity and the right to consent, so such marriages should not be allowed, and that differentiation somehow violates Article 14, 15 and 21.
In other news, the newly constituted 5-member Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister held its first meeting today at Niti Aayog in New Delhi to discuss the reasons for economic slowdown and look for ways to counter it. In the meeting, the Council identified 10 issues around which it will structure its report in the coming months. These include economic growth, employment and job creation, integration of informal sector, fiscal framework and monetary policy. The Council, led by Niti Aayog Vice Chairman Vivek Debroy, will also take inputs from the RBI and Monetary Policy Committee while considering issues related to monetary policy framework. The 5-member committee, comprising of reputed economists and experts, was constituted by the Prime Minister last month to halt the downhill movement of the Indian economy. The Council will hold its next meeting in a month's time.
There is a consensus amongst us about the various reasons that have contributed to the slowdown in the growth rate. Your question was, is there consensus? The answer is, hang on, the answer is yes.
Well, the World Bank, meanwhile, has said that India's GDP may take a hit and may slow down from 8.6% in 2015 to 7% in 2017. The World Bank is of the opinion that the GST is expected to disrupt economic activity in early 2018, but the momentum may pick up. The International Monetary Fund also reduced India's growth to 6.7%.
International financial institutions like the World Bank and the IMF have attributed India's economic slowdown to demonetization and the goods and services tax rollout. The World Bank report South Asia Economic Focus Fall 2017 says the slowdown in South Asia was driven by India. It has also warned that subdued private investment due to the internal bottlenecks could put downside pressures on the country's potential growth.
Demonetization has indeed impacted the informal economy and for quite a long time. And as far as the GST is concerned, that number of issues have come up, and the government is trying to sort out each one of them. But meanwhile, you know that the people suffering had been there, particularly the small and tiny units have suffered, those who were paying the taxes.
The International Monetary Fund on Tuesday also lowered India's growth projection to 6.7% in 2017, 0.5% less than its previous two forecasts and slower than China's 6.8%.
It has led to unprecedented inequality everywhere, including India. It has led to the destruction of small and medium enterprises. That's what we are witnessing in India. It has led to economic slowdown. This is what we have been warning, cautioning.
Meanwhile, the ruling dispensation has stressed that the reforms undertaken by the centre, like GST, were institutional and structural reforms and will bear fruit in the long run.
इसके जो फायदे हैं, नतायज हैं, बहुत पॉजिटिव होंगे. शॉर्ट टर्म में यस, आई वोंट कॉल इट डिसरप्टिव, बट आई विल कॉल इट दैट थोड़ा डिसरप्शन है इकोनॉमी में, जो जीडीपी ग्रोथ में, और वो शॉर्ट टर्म के लिए है. लॉन्ग टर्म में बहुत फ़ायदे होंगे. आप हिंदुस्तान की इकोनॉमी जिस तरह से आज चल रही है, उसको बिल्कुल चरमराती हालत में 2013 में थी. आज देखिए जिस तरह से, एक बोलते हैं कि 5 फ्रेजाइल इकोनॉमी थी 2013 में, उसमें इंडिया एक था. आज जो है brightest spot in the world, वो है इंडिया for FDI and for all investors.
GDP growth slowed to its lowest in more than 2 years, dragged down by slowing construction and manufacturing activities. The economy expanded at 5.7% in the June quarter compared to 6.1% in the March quarter. GDP at constant prices in Q1 of 2017-18 is estimated at 31.10 lakh crore rupees as against 29.42 lakh crore in Q1 of 2016-17. The international agencies, however, exuded confidence that newly implemented GST regime will prove beneficial in the long run and make India one of the most dynamic and competitive economies. Kriti Mishra, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, despite those projections, Arun Jaitley, the finance minister who is in the US to attend the annual meetings of the IMF and the World Bank, added that the series of reforms like demonetization and GST has put the Indian economy on a far more stronger track. The finance minister was addressing students of Columbia University in New York during his week-long trip to the US. He also said that India is on a stable track, moving towards achieving a cleaner and bigger economy in the coming days. Jaitley also said that there is a consensus on reforms in India. He said that the government has convinced people that domestic investment is grossly inadequate, also saying that the recent Supreme Court order on the right to privacy lays down correct exemptions which protects Aadhaar.
In the smoothest possible transfer of one tax system to another. India is one economy which was hugely cash dominated. Cash dominated to this extent that cash was almost 12.5% of our GDP. In that cash domination, the high value currency was 86%. And high value currency means a large part of it is not being transacted in the market. It goes from one cupboard to another. Eroded a lot of ethics and morality in both private and public dealings.
Back home, actor Anupam Kher was today appointed as the chairman of the Film and Television Institute of India. Kher replaces Gajendra Chauhan, who had a controversial tenure as head of the Pune-based institute. His term had ended in March. Kher has previously held the post of chairman of the Central Board of Film Certification and the National School of Drama. He is a recipient of the Padma Shri in 2004 and the Padma Bhushan in 2016.
देखिए, मेरा कार्यकाल जो था वो 3 मार्च 2017 को समाप्त हो गया और मुझे जितना भी समय मिला, जितना भी अच्छा काम मैं कर सका मैंने किया और उसका जो सर्टिफिकेशन है वो है कैग रिपोर्ट. तो मैं ये कह सकता हूं कि अनुपम खेर साहब को अभी अपॉइंट किया गया है और मुझे उम्मीद है कि वो अच्छा काम करेंगे.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi offered tributes to reformist Nanaji Deshmukh and socialist leader Lok Nayak Jayaprakash Narayan on their birth anniversaries. The Prime Minister said that Nanaji Deshmukh worked hard to make villages self-reliant and bring them out of poverty, and he continues to be a motivational force for the nation with his emphasis on rural development. Prime Minister Modi also hailed Jayaprakash Narayan's unflinching courage and righteousness that inspires every Indian. He called him a youth icon who was deeply popular among the masses. He said that JP Narayan stayed away from the galleries of power to serve the people. The Prime Minister also stressed on the role of Jan Bhagidari or collective action in creating a new India with a special focus on rural transformation. He said his government was committed to achieving this goal with the active support of the people.
गांव एक समरस गांव बने, सबको जोड़ने वाला गांव बने और सब मिलकर के गांव के कल्याण के लिए संकल्प करें, उस प्रकार के गांव के विकास को जन भागीदारी से आगे बढ़ाने की दिशा में भारत सरकार अनेक विध कदम उठा रही है। इसलिए हमारा प्रयास ये है कि गांव की अपनी जो शक्ति है, गांव का अपना जो सामर्थ्य है, सबसे पहले उसी को जोड़ते हुए विकास का मॉडल बनाएंगे जो गांव के लोगों को अनुकूल होता है, परिचित होता है।
Water Resources and Ganga Rejuvenation Minister Nitin Gadkari on Wednesday stressed that substantial progress on cleaning up the Ganga will be visible by March 2019. He indicated that the government will completely restrict untreated water flowing into the river by March 2019 and will possibly arm authorities with a law to penalize polluters. The centre will soon launch pilot projects for surface cleaning, disposal of cultural and religious waste, and ask the corporate and local communities, including cultural bodies and NGOs, to be a part of the plan.
ने सबका टाइम बाउंड प्लान बनाया, प्रोफेशनल प्लान बनाया और इसको पूरा करने की जिम्मेदारी हमारी है। वी आर रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर दैट और इस रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी को पूरी तरह से वहन करते हुए अब इसके बाद लोगों को ये कहने का मौका नहीं आएगा, ये मिशन यशस्वी होगा। और मैं आपको बहुत कोशिश करके ये कोशिश करेंगे कि मार्च एंड तक 2019 के आपको गंगा में काफ़ी परिवर्तन दिखेगा। सर पूरा काम होगा ऐसा नहीं कहूँगा, पर दिखेगा।
Founding member of Trinamool Congress Mukul Roy resigned from Rajya Sabha membership today. Roy was suspended last month from the party for 6 years for anti-party activities hours after he announced his resignation from the party. Roy, who met Rajya Sabha chairman M. Venkaiah Naidu to submit his resignation, said that he was quitting with a heavy heart. While there are speculations that Roy could be joining the BJP, he has not divulged his future plans as yet. 2 militants have been gunned down by security forces in Bandipora in Jammu and Kashmir, but 2 Indian Air Force personnel too have been killed in the gunfight. The Indian Air Force personnel were part of the operation for training. The encounter broke out between militants and security forces in Hajin area of the North Kashmir district. The operation against the militants is underway.
सूचना मिली थी वहाँ पे सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेस को, सीआरपीएफ, आर्मी या पुलिस तीनों ने मिलकर के उस इलाके को घेराबंदी की थी। उसके बाद लगभग अर्ली मॉर्निंग उनसे लगाव हुआ। उस लगाव में 2 एलईटी के आतंकवादी मारे गए हैं। उसमें सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेस के भी 2 शहीद हुए, मार्टियर हुए।
On the last day of his Navsarjan Yatra in Gujarat, Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi questioned the BJP government's claims of progress. The fresh barb from the Congress leader comes a day after he and the BJP chief Amit Shah traded charges over corruption and development claims from each other's home turfs. Interacting with college students on the last day of his Yatra in central Gujarat, he blamed the Gujarat government for not providing proper education facilities to the students.
शिक्षा का सिस्टम है, उसमें फाइनेंशियल इंसेंटिव बन गया, पैसे बनाने का इंसेंटिव बन गया। तो ये कांग्रेस पार्टी की सरकार आएगी तो इसको फिर से बदलना पड़ेगा। 12,000 स्कूल बंद किए गए हैं, पब्लिक स्कूल गुजरात में। शायद और किसी स्टेट में ऐसा नहीं किया गया। शिक्षा के सिस्टम का काम शिक्षा देना होता है, पैसा लेना नहीं होता है।
And here's a quick roundup of more national news stories in Nationwide. Voting for bypolls to Gurdaspur in Punjab and Vengara in Kerala Assembly seats concluded a short while back. VVPATs are being used at all polling stations. The Gurdaspur Lok Sabha seat fell vacant following the demise of actor-turned-politician Vinod Khanna. By-polls to the Kerala Vengara Assembly seat was necessitated after sitting MLA PK Kunyalikutty of the UDF won the Malappuram Lok Sabha by-poll. Counting of votes for both the seats will take place on the 15th of October. The Supreme Court will peruse CBI documents on details about Karti Chidambaram's foreign bank accounts and properties. The CBI in its FIR has alleged irregularities in Foreign Investment Promotion Board clearance to INX Media for receiving overseas funds to the tune of 305 crore rupees in 2007 when Karti's father, P. Chidambaram, was the finance minister. The centre has told Supreme Court that it will decide next month on issuing a notification on the ongoing dispute between Odisha and Chhattisgarh over the Mahanadi River. Odisha has been opposing Chhattisgarh's plan to build 13 barrages and 7 small dams across the Mahanadi in a plan to extract more water. Odisha has said that this would adversely affect interests of its farmers. A day after the Supreme Court banned the sale of firecrackers in Delhi and NCR region, traders with temporary licenses moved the Apex Court seeking its relaxation. Lawyers for the petitioners told the Apex Court that after the lifting of the November 2016 ban on September 12 this year, they had bought firecrackers for sale, but the October 9th ban will cause them heavy losses. On to international news, and Spain has reacted angrily to Catalan President Carles Puigdemont's Tuesday address in the Catalan Parliament. Spanish Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy has warned Catalonia of activating Section 155 of the Constitution that allows him to suspend Catalonia's political autonomy and take over the region. Meanwhile, there's a mixed response among the people regarding Puigdemont's suspension of independence to allow talks with Madrid.
Spanish Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy on Wednesday moved towards activating Article 155 of the Spanish Constitution that would allow him to suspend Catalonia's political autonomy and take over the region. This came a day after Catalan President Carles Puigdemont suspended the declaration of independence to allow for talks with Madrid.
El Consejo de Ministros ha acordado esta mañana requerir formalmente al Gobierno de la Generalitat para que confirme si ha declarado la independencia de Cataluña. Este requerimiento, previo a cualquiera de las medidas que el Gobierno puede adoptar al amparo del artículo 155.
The decision was taken at an emergency meeting of the Spanish cabinet to decide the government's response to Catalonia's president's move. Responding angrily to Puigdemont's speech, the Spanish government said the Catalan government could not act on the results of the referendum. Spain's angry response was triggered by Puigdemont's speech in the Catalan parliament on Tuesday evening, where he made a symbolic declaration of independence based on the results of a referendum held on the 1st of October. However, the president suspended formal steps to secede, saying it will allow for dialogue and mediation.
El govern i jo mateix proposem que el Parlament suspengui els efectes de la declaració d'independència per tal que en les properes setmanes emprenguem un diàleg sense el qual no és possible arribar a una solució acordada. Creiem fermament que el moment demana no només la desescalada en la tensió.
Puigdemont and other regional politicians also signed a document declaring Catalonia's independence from Spain. There was mixed response among the residents of Catalonia over the president's decision, with some calling the decision prudent. However, many Barcelona residents have voiced concern over what could now become a protracted standoff between the Catalan and Spanish governments.
Por lo que creo que estamos igual o peor que ayer y se abre un periodo de incertidumbre aún mayor del que teníamos ayer, con lo que veo difícil que el Estado pueda hacer alguna maniobra de diálogo.
Creo que es lo más prudente que se podía hacer a estas alturas para rebajar presiones, para dar un margen de tiempo y para propiciar un diálogo con el gobierno intransigente central.
Catalan crisis has deeply divided the Spanish nation. The stakes are high for Spain losing Catalonia, which has its own language and culture, will deprive Spain of a fifth of its economic output and more than a quarter of exports. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
And now to the US, where the death toll from the devastating wildfires in California rose to 17 on Wednesday. More than 180 people are reported to be missing, while 3,000 people remain in shelters. Most of the fires were ignited on Sunday, driven by winds of more than 50 miles per hour and dry conditions. A total of 17 wildfires have burned through 115,000 acres of land across the state, Napa Valley and the city of Santa Rosa being the worst affected. Hotels, vineyards and even schools all burned to the ground. More than 2,000 homes and buildings were destroyed, forcing thousands to flee to shelters. The White House said President Donald Trump has signed a major disaster declaration and fire management assistance grants for the state. In Santa Rosa, local residents have begun returning to their homes. While some houses survived, others were completely destroyed.
That area doesn't look good at all. Yeah, you walk by your neighbors and everything's gone.
I mean, at our age, it's hard to think about starting over, but you know, we're pretty resilient, and we will.
Actually had a dance studio in the garage that she taught ballet, and so that's gone. And we used to do canning every summer and stuff, and that's all gone. And their whole life, you know, their whole life is gone.
The European Union has extended sanctions on North Korea by banning the import of textiles and limiting the sales of crude oil. The 28-member bloc adopted UN restrictions imposed by the Security Council last month to punish Pyongyang for its sixth and largest nuclear test into its own sanctions program. Amid mounting tensions over North Korea, South Korea's Foreign Minister Kang Kyun-hwa also met US Senator Jack Reed in Seoul on Wednesday to discuss the bilateral alliance and security concerns posed by North Korea. Meanwhile, China urged all sides to exercise restraint over the North Korea issue. This after the US military, in a joint aviation exercise with Japan and South Korea, flew supersonic heavy bombers over the Korean peninsula in a show of force against Pyongyang.
那中方的立场是非常清楚的。当前朝鲜半岛的形势高度的复杂敏感，我们希望有关的各方呢保持克制，避免做加剧对立和紧张、加剧相互刺激的事情。
And here are some updates from across the world in Global Buzz. Nearly 4 lakh public sector employees took to streets in 90 provinces across France to protest against pro-market President Emmanuel Macron's reform measures. Another call to stage and another protest is likely to be on the 19th of October against all social and economic reform measures released by the government. The International Monetary Fund raised its forecast for Chinese economy in 2017 and 2018 for the fourth time this year due to a strong growth momentum. The 19th National Congress of the Communist Party of China is expected to convene on the 18th of October in Beijing. The IMF's World Economic Outlook predicts the global economy will grow by 3.6% in 2017 and 3.7% in 2018, both 0.1 percentage point higher than the previous forecast in July. At least 13 people were killed in a fight between rival gangs in a prison in northern Mexican state of Nuevo Leon. Security forces had to enter the Cadereyta prison outside the city of Monterrey to protect prison guards and other inmates. Kenya's opposition leader Raila Odinga announced his withdrawal from the October 26th presidential election rerun. Odinga said that he will not take part of the election under the existing circumstances, arguing that the contest cannot be free and fair. And finally, some updates from the world of sports in SportsBeat. European champions Portugal qualified for the next year's World Cup with a convincing 2-0 win over Switzerland on Tuesday after an own goal by Johan de Juro gave them the opener. Andre Silva scored the second and sealed the victory in the 57th minute as Portugal levelled Switzerland with 27 points and won Group B on goal difference. In another World Cup qualifier match, Argentina beat Ecuador 3-1 to enter the World Cup 2018 spot. Lionel Messi's hat-trick helped Argentina's team to ease past their opponents. Argentina went behind after just 37 seconds through Romario Ibarra's goal, but Messi scored a hat-trick to guarantee his side one of the 3 automatic qualifying spots. A stomach bug and a shoulder problem forced Australian Nick Kyrgios to retire after losing the first set in the Shanghai Masters first-round match against American Steve Johnson. Kyrgios took the set 4-2 lead, took in fact a 4-2 lead in the tiebreak before Johnson fired a series of winners to take the set 7-6, after which Kyrgios walked out of the court. That's it on the news at 6. Thanks for joining us.